This is season 9, episode 34, number 382. You and I just did a whole podcast without recording it, but I'm willing to say that nothing we talked about in our on-ramp, I'm willing to talk about publicly.
Nah.
I'm not interested. So for all you publics, welcome. But
There's no Patreon. No Patreon for
even in Patreon, there's certain things we're not going to talk about, but
that would be one. That would be one. That topic would be something, because I think I'm betting that topic people would connect with.
well, I would love
and sorry, I gotta say this other stuff. Forget this. Probably something that guys don't openly talk about.
Oh yeah, guaranteed.
Right? This is a book club for men topic. I think we should bring it back there. So, Gary, at some point, because I'm betting that it goes either way in long-term relationships and short-term relationships. But the topic in particular, I think it would have some friggin' fire conversation in our book club.
I agree.
Like all stages of it, somebody would be able to access it for sure.
So good morning, Gary. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning.
So let's see if we can shape this a little bit for the public.
Okay.
And when I say let's see if it's the royal we, it's really me, and then whatever you want to do with it. But so I sent you a video this morning, and for me, the gist of it was that this idea that people shouldn't be scared to shift gears and start a new path, follow a different path. Sometimes people get stuck in the way that they operate, and the people around them then become stuck in how that person operates. So if they try to change, it may disrupt the relationships around them. It may cause conflict, friction, because the people around them aren't interested in a new story, a new narrative for this person, but the actual person wants something different, wants something new. And the best example I can give here that's appropriate for me to talk, that I'm willing to talk about in public, is kind of my career and the shifts in my career that have occurred that I wouldn't say have disturbed some people, but really throw people off when they haven't spoken to me in a long time, and then they see me or we connect and they find out what I'm doing today, and they're totally blown away because they're thinking of me 15 years ago in my career and where I was and what I was doing and how I was doing it. And the passion I had 15 years ago for what I was doing, I have the same passion. It's just for something different now. So people, I've run into many people since I've gotten into secondary who are like, "Oh man, you're in secondary? What do you do in secondary?" And, "Oh, I'm in special education." And they're like, "Oh yeah, I can totally see you doing that." Then they inevitably come back to the tech. What about the tech? What about the innovation? And I say, well, the tech was only ever good for serving its purpose within my environment. It was never like I enjoy technology very much. I've always been fascinated by it. And as a teacher, I've tried to harness it to help students learn, to help me teach. And sometimes my passion maybe was over the top. And so people just automatically assume that like everything in my life is tech, that's fine if that's how they want to perceive it. But then the innovation component, they're like, "But you're not innovating." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am. I'm just doing it with the current work I do." And then it opens this whole door. Like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What do I mean?" Innovation is finding new ways to do the same things that you've already kind of done. Make it more efficient, make it more effective, make it a little bit different so that it's appealing to somebody else rather than just you. Like innovation's not always just connected to technology. And I would like to think that this, in my second year of doing the work I'm doing, I am innovating based on the learning I did last year in my first year of the work that I was doing, to the point where, I've talked to my principal about, um, I talked to my principal as we were starting this school year about the innovations I wanted to bring into like my e-learning course and the way that I do my monitoring work. He was pumped. He's like, "That's great. I love it. Good for you, and hopefully good for the kids." And I think it's been good for everybody because it's helping. It's helping. It's helping. Right. All that to say, I always come back to, and now even like moving into guidance, people are like, "What about the tech?" And I'm like, "Well, what about the tech?" Like, I I can say, and I'm so happy to be able to say this, I am really happy that my career is moving in the way it's going because I once was this and now I am this and I'm becoming that. And what I mean by that is like this, it's a really, for me, it's been a really cool path of doing the things that I like. And I think doing the things that I'm good at and people being open to helping me move in those directions. And proof of this is, if you asked me, oh my God, if you asked me when I was in my grade 3 classroom at St. John's, where are you going to be in the next 5 years? I would say, I'll be here teaching primary, or maybe I'll be a vice principal. Boom, world happens. And it's like, now I'm out of the classroom and I'm working with high school kids as a re-engagement teacher. I would have never imagined that in a million years. And then you throw on the layer of, now I'm a high school teacher. Like, this was, dude, 5, 6 years ago. If you would have told me this was going to happen, I would have been like, man, get your head out of your, what are you talking about? So the fact that I could shift like that, to me, that is the bomb, right? That is like, for me, that is fantastic. I love it. I love that I'm moving in the direction I'm going. In 5 years, hopefully we'll be talking again and we can look at what's happened since then, right? I just don't know. But people get stuck. People get stuck with your story, and I'm guilty of it too. I'll run into somebody and I'll hear about what they're up to. And I was like, it just slaps me in the face. Like, you're doing what? I would have never imagined. Well, who cares what I imagine? It's their
Mm,
life, it's their
mhm.
story. They're writing it, they're rewriting it, they're erasing it, whatever. So that video hit me hard, man, because I don't know, I guess I'm proof that you can literally shift, you can hit a different pathway. Mind you, I know, and I'm very grateful for the people who have assisted me in my direction, because
Mhm.
there's no way I was going to be able to do this all by myself. It's just not possible. There's too many things that there are too many people that need to be involved and to speak for me and to use their influence and their position to make things happen. And I'm
Mhm.
very appreciative. And so I show that appreciation and that gratitude, I guess, in how I treat my kids and the families I work with.
Mhm.
When they tell me something crazy, I'm like, I don't think it's as crazy as you think it is. If you want to make it happen, I'm in your corner. I don't have that much power or influence, but I'll do what I can to help you make it happen if you're willing to do the work.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bottom line. And just boom, that's where it stops. I'm willing to give you whatever I can with my position if you want to do the work. So yeah, that's that. That's where I land on that one.
It's good. It's good. Yeah. The I did more than my share of commenting on the videos that you posted up. I think the the ability to be constantly authoring your story is a critical tool. One way to look at it is agency and embracing it. For better, agency is just, that capacity to make decisions. That's all it is. There's no guarantee on the other side, but you're just not incapacitated by decision making. And to make decisions, and not, there's decisions that you can kind of build a lot of structure into, and you have a pretty good idea that certain outcomes are going to happen. I mean, that's the departure point that people have when they leave you to your own devices, and then they come back and they meet you 5 years later. They're not there for the 5 years of path that, for them, your story was put on pause when they walked away and they came back. So of course, they're, it's kind of verbal diarrhea, but they're overstating the obvious. Of course, you would have no idea. You couldn't imagine this because you weren't along for the ride. You weren't there as I was making my decisions. And as long as that individual, in the exact same moment that they notice that your current state is different than what they expected, as long as they don't shift into anything that starts to sort of try to re-anchor you back in that place just so that they can understand you now, I'm good. But I've met people that will do that. For a moment, they're in the present with you. And then all of a sudden they start doing this nostalgia trip. Well, what happened to this? What happened to, and they start going backwards. So they start walking you back through your whole last lived life. And I'm not down for that usually. I try to find a way to get myself out of that conversation.
I'm down for it sometimes. Can I give you another example?
Yeah, of course.
So when in situations, this is funny too, because the people that know me now that didn't know me then, when I start talking about AI or tech integration or whatever, they look at me sideways like, dude, you're just a spec ed teacher. What are you talking about? And then I laugh thinking, that's what you know of me right now. I guess you don't know that I've always been interested in this stuff. Like it goes both ways. People are looking at me now. They're like, you're just a spec ed teacher. I'm like, I'm just a spec ed teacher. Okay. And so they dismiss anything I have to say about those other topics that I have a passion for. That, do I really need to be walking around with like little billboards about all my passions and what I'm into? So that's interesting as well. And so I try to keep an open mind too. When somebody splurts something out and I look at them, I'm like, okay, this is an interesting moment because you're talking about something that to me is a surprise. So like I'm open. If you want to give me more information on your story, I'm here. I'm listening. I'd love to know. Tell me more. Right? It's like it's like a newfound hearing about people's pathways and where they've come from and who they are. Fascinating. Oh, I've always enjoyed that. I said that to a coworker yesterday as we were talking about something. I said, "Look, do you have 10 minutes right now?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "If you're open, dude, I would love to hear how you got here. How did you end up sitting there today?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "How did you end up in this job?" And he's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "I'm totally serious. I want to hear your story." And he told me his story, and I was like, "This is friggin' fascinating. This is amazing." And then I started asking questions, and this person was like, at first, was like, "Are you messing with me?" I said, "I am not messing with you. I want to hear your story. I just know you of this part of you. I know nothing else about you. And if you want to share, I would love to hear it." And he did share, and I was blown away. I was like, "Thanks for sharing." Now, this is obviously this is somebody I'm going to I do work with closely and will be working more closely next year. So I enjoy, like, this is like building trust for me, right? Like, he's taking a risk by sharing personal stuff. I'm happy to take the risk too, because it's one of those things where it's like, sometimes you're invested, you get invested. And I know as a spec ed teacher, I did that with my teaching partner last year, to the point where This last hockey season, my son played on a hockey team, and her son is a year younger, but he would get called up to my son's team. And you know how I am with my home and my family. I don't let people in. But when I would see her at a hockey game and my wife was with me, I'd make sure to like, hey, come over, meet my wife. I have my wife meet you because she's heard so much about you. It felt it's good. It's like you at work well together, but outside of work, I'm happy to converse with you and introduce you to my wife and my son and my world outside of work. That for me is like the ultimate package. It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, I feel good. I'm like, this is harmony for me. I don't do that with everybody, but
Mhm.
with this person that I was talking to about, like, give me your story if you want. I want to hear your story. I want to know who you are. He was open to it. And I like that. It's building trust. It's building, it's human work. And I like human work, but I don't do it with everybody, right? Because it's dirty as well. Like you hear things, you learn things that maybe you're not prepared for, you don't want to know. So when I'm open to it, I'm open to it. Like it reminds me of you saying to me, I don't know how many years ago. I don't even I'm gonna mess this up, but I remember us talking about what could you tell me that would cause me to walk away from our friendship, right? Like if does that make sense? Does it?
Yeah, it was a behavior. We were talking about either a behavior or a statement. The conversation came out of you. I don't know how we got there. You spreading stuff online. We were like you sort of like throwing shade on me online, and then we kind of got into this zone of stability of relationships, and it got into like, what would my reaction be if you were spreading something like that online? I said, well, I would probably initially think there's something mental illness challenge here, and then we kind of got into some of those other spaces about like I think that was also around the episodes too when we were talking about um I think you had mentioned something about friends that were cops, and sometimes being in alignment with them as a friend is different than being in alignment with their beliefs, and the choice to exist in that is a very mature way to look at your relationships. Like, it's not always accessible for everybody. And then that's how we got into, well, what could we find out about each other that might actually destabilize the relationship? So that was the path. That was a fiery 2023, I imagine, around 2022. It feels like around a COVID time that we had that combo.
Gary said it's always interesting in the way that we write our stories and the ways that people connect with our stories. The parts that resonate with them are not always the way we perceive others might connect.
Well, we know this when sometimes we receive pushback where they don't want to be removed as a character in that story. Like, you're like, yeah, you know what? I metaphorically killed you off in chapter 4, but I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you. You were written out of the script. Um, we know the power of that when we encounter somebody from the past that we didn't have a clean break from, and you start to realize the storyline is still open. You're like, yeah, that's the guy that, or that's the gal that. You're often saying that under your breath, or you're saying it to someone who's sitting with you. You're like, I'm just going to walk over here before they come get over to the table if you're at a PD session or something like that. Fascinating stuff.
Or would you actually work with them?
Yeah, that could be. Yeah. I've stopped going to the photocopier at 1:00 because I know I'm going to encounter them there. Man.
And I think I've told you this too. I kind of have felt when I'm talking to somebody who doesn't want to talk to me, I get that. I get a vibe and I see the body language, and sometimes I chuckle like, well, tough luck. This is going to be awkward for you because I got things to say, even though you don't want to hear them. You don't want to talk to me, but I'm going to stay here and I'm going to stand my ground until you actually tell me you don't want to talk to me or find your way out of this conversation, which is kind of a maybe some people would consider that a dick move. I know when I'm in that situation, I I have said, I'm leaving now. Thanks for the chat. I'll catch you later." It's like I'm out. It depends on the situation, but that makes me laugh too when I get this vibe from people that they're not interested in hearing from me. They don't want to be around me, but here I am. I'm around you for whatever reason. It's funny how
Mhm.
that happens too. And again, I went straight at somebody yesterday. Somebody came at me with something, and I felt that they provided a jab or two in their message to me. And I so there was a message, and in the message there were what I perceived one or two jabs at me. So I acknowledged the message, and then I responded with, "And now I'm gonna address these 2 jabs that you just threw at me." And they were like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah. You're good with the message? Yep. Okay, loud and clear. Now, this and this that you just said, that never happened unless you have evidence that it happened, because I don't have any evidence it happened." And then because I jabbed back, then they did
Mhm.
some research and they realized, "Oh, shoot, you're right. Um, I don't have evidence." So I don't know where I came up with that. I guess somebody told me something and I just believed them off the bat, off the top. And I was like, "Great. See you later." And then as they're trying to explain themselves, I walked. I was done. I'm like, I'm not I was I was like, "No, I'm not taking that jab today. I'm gonna respond. I'm gonna come at you head on, and if I'm wrong, then in the end, I will tell you, 'Hey, I was wrong, and I'm glad we figured this out.'" But I was certain I was not wrong, and that they were jabbing because that's how they operate.
Mhm.
So, even as I say that to you, I'm open to the idea that maybe that's not how they operate. And though our relationship, I perceive it one way when maybe it's not that way. I'm open to all of that. But at that moment, I was like, "Did you just really poke me with those 2 things? Because
Mhm.
I'm not stepping away now." Normally, I would with this person because I want nothing to do with them. So it's one of those, they throw the message, they jab, and I take the message and I leave because I want nothing with it. Today or yesterday, I was like, "I'm not leaving today. I'm gonna stab you back, and we're gonna do this until we're done." Um, and I came out on top, and that's like a ego thing, totally ego driven, but at the same time, a big F you. Like, why are you doing this to me? What's your problem with me? You know? What did I do to you that you keep coming at me like that? You don't have to answer that question, but I'm showing you now, I'm not backing away from your bullshit. If something
Mhm.
didn't happen that you're saying happened, and I can prove it didn't happen, then I'm gonna come at you with it. Um, and that was also very that was a you know what that was? That was a courageous conversation. Um, I wasn't stepping away this time, even though I don't like them, and I don't wanna spend any time with them. I wasn't stepping away. There's growth there. I and
Mhm.
it was cordial, but it was also like, "Yeah, you're full of shit. Don't do that to me again unless you have the receipts, and then show me the receipts, and I will happily tell you I was wrong." But I'm
Yeah,
usually
exactly.
not wrong with what you're talking about. So, come with the receipts or don't come at all. Unfortunately, I have to enter into these kinds of conversations daily with people because my work involves me talking to teachers and students all day long, whereas other teachers don't have to communicate with teachers. They just need to communicate with students.
Yeah. I find I'm constantly saying, I just want to make sure we're in the same conversation.
That's nice of you. I would
Right?
I would love to enter into these conversations with people and record them. Be like, "Just so you know, I'm recording this
Yes.
for, educational purposes only."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I say that one frequently. I say that to parents. I say that to kids. I've said it to colleagues because in my role as a cert, and you see this too, what's often brought to you is just a mess. and to parse out the nugget of it as to what's going to actually drive the most effective outcome to this interaction. I'm constantly just like scanning. It's sort of it's like digging through shit trying to find, that thing that you accidentally swallowed. I'm like, man, there's a whole lot of shit I got to go through here just to figure out what it is we're actually talking about. And sometimes you don't get it in the first convo. I've gone back. I've actually had the convo, and I go back to my office. I'm like, I got to go back and talk to them again, because sometimes they'll say stuff that piques my brain, and I'm like, oh no, I got to go deal with that. I have to deal with that first before I can come back and deal with this. I have one. I have a good one right now that I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure how to work through. So can I pivot for a sec? Do you want to hear this one?
Yeah.
So Gary, Gary doesn't know this side of me. Gary's going to get to know a side of me right now that he may or may not know. I don't think I ever mentioned this. So and our listeners know, it's come up before. I have my PQP quals. I have them. I've taken the courses. And it's only been this year that I don't know how it comes out to this, but my principal comes to me, he's like, you have the principal courses. I'm like, yeah, I do. And he's kind of standing there, and I'm wondering what I'm in my brain. I'm watching him calculate one of two forks in the road, either to ask why I didn't go through with it, or he's setting me up for the, do you want to do designate work? Well, he did both. So I shared my story. I'm like, do you really want the story? He's like, yeah. He looks at his watch. He goes, I got 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'll make it a 5-minute story. I said, you get me, because thank you for giving me a time limit, because sometimes my stories they start at 5. They don't end at 5. So I tell him that. And then he's like, oh, okay. He goes, well, no pressure. I'm like, okay, here comes the other fork in the road. He walked back down the road, and now he's going to go up the other side. And I realized I was surrounded at that point. He's like, can we include you on the list to do some designate work in the future? I'm like, let me think about it. I said, I will say, if you are considering me, I like fair warning. And fair warning for me isn't the day before. I'd like at least a week. I said, when I teach my strats, I'm mapping out at least 2 weeks down the road. And I don't like the disruption of having to replan to do anything other than my job. I said, I'm just not down with that. He's like, okay. So I leave that conversation, and I get an email later that day, which is 8 work days from now. Can you do designate work? So he actually did. He had something in something, ready to ask. He just didn't ask it in that point. And he actually respected the time. It was 1 day more than what I had asked for. So I think I've done it 3 times now. But the thing that I've done it different times of the day. And just recently, so this past on Thursday, I had the 12 to 4 shift. So that meant I wasn't teaching my period 5 class. Now, I've never been in the halls for period 5, not this semester anyways, because I'm always teaching. That's one of my teachable periods. So being out there and watching some of the behaviors at the end of the day was really fascinating. So nothing big happened. And when I mentioned this to the VP the next day, they had such a look of relief on their face. I guess I could have sent them a text at the end of the workday, but none of the team came back to the school at the end of the day. So they left the event wherever they were at. They had some big meeting. They obviously all just went home from there. So I could have sent an email at the end of the day just to say, all good. It was just shuffling kids around the hall, but no events of note to bring to your attention. So, but the thing that I noticed, which was really interesting to me, is that during period 5, there was a noticeable amount of teachers that when I found students out in the hall, I'm like, hey, how's it going? I'm Clough. I'm here to clear the halls. What classroom you're supposed to be in? And then they would say, well, I'm supposed to be in room whatever, but my teachers locked the door and they aren't letting me in. I'm like, really? Like, were you at the bathroom a long time? No. Like, oh, were you late? Nope, just stepped out to grab something from my locker. And there were other ones like, yeah, because I saw them wandering, and I'll always do one pass first before I sort of like, I'll just watch, I'll check what the habit is or the pattern. If they're, if I see them in the hall on my next pass, I'm like, you got to get back to class. Or you need to be in a place, because if you do have a spare, the rule at our school is like, you don't get to wander hall. You have to be in one of the common spaces, which means you got to be in the caf or you got to be in the library, but you can't be wandering, walking, and talking. So, anyways, the thing that that was interesting though was this idea that teachers are locking their students out of the class. A little bit of a like a punishment, kind of, right? Now I get it. Like I think by law we're supposed to have our closed doors closed and locked. Like I think that's the standard procedure. But to that end, you need to have a counter protocol to let the kids back in, and to remember that if you are running a loud class, you don't want your students standing outside the classroom waiting for you to come back. And you definitely don't want your class to be so loud that you can't hear the kid knocking on the door. So I encountered a whole bunch of this, but it was 5 different classrooms where the kids had been locked out of the class. Some for punitive things, some just because that's how they roll. But the next layer that made it kind of funny is that, again, I watch for the patterns, I wait to see what's going on, but at some point I'm going to lead. So my version of leadership is on one of the passes, I take out my key, I open the door of the classroom, and I let the kid in. And 3 of the 5 faces, teacher faces, were aghast that the kid was being let in. And I was like, there's something really interesting. There's a dynamic here that obviously I've just stepped into somebody else's story. I just literally, like, I was like a surprise guest in chapter 6, and they were not prepared to entertain it, right? I'm showing up on someone's doorstep at dinner time. Like that's literally what it looked like. Like, oh. And then they sort of see it's me. And then I could see they back off it. They back off it. None of them came to talk to me. So this was Thursday. No one came to talk to me because it's not one of the interesting things. I don't know. I'd actually be curious if Gary could shine light on this. It's not announced when a designate is doing the job. I don't know if that's intentional. I would start from the point of view of, is it may be useful to announce to the department heads in the least, the department heads, the leadership teachers, that another leader is sort of running the show for the day. I think that would be useful, and then department heads can decide how they want to disseminate that to their teams. But anyways, me opening the door to someone's classroom that's a pretty provocative move. You imagine anyway, if your door is closed and you hear it like being clicked from the outside, it's a pretty provocative moment when you hear the door clicking. And you know that it would only be I mean, it's obviously only staff that would do it, but there's still that moment of, a staff member even to unlock the door. Like I think there's a little bit of preciousness at that moment. Like, how dare they? So I was encountering all of that facial, emotional reactivity when I let the kid in, because I did poke my head in after them. And I just said, I let the student back in. And then I walked away. I didn't stay around. I just, matter of fact, I let the student back in. So yeah, that was kind of interesting.
That is very cool. And I can only imagine the classroom teacher whose door was locked, as that door's being opened, they're thinking, who's coming into my room? My door is locked. Like it's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And then the kid walks in, then Clough pokes his head around and it's like, hey, what's up? And they're like, oh, in our district, as Gary's saying now, I posted this just as you were talking, so I'd remember. And Gary posted, in our board, always send communication to staff about delegation of authority. So when all our administrators are going to be out of the building, our principal will send an email to the staff letting us know on this day from these times, so-and-so and so-and-so will be the designate while we're away.
I'm imagining like it must be a rule for you and it must not be a rule for us.
100%. Like it's,
yeah, like because I've never encountered that unless I'm just passing by and talking to administrator. Like they'll tell you that they're out of the building and such is sort of like being designate. But I have never seen an email that says, I think that, yeah, that all admin are out of the building. And I wonder if they would consider it to be a too high of a risk, a security risk, to actually make it publicly known that the official administrative leaders are out of the building. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would just, that's the only reason I can imagine that it's not a rule.
Oh, well, I mean, our admin only let us know. Like, they don't advertise it to anybody else except the staff.
Right, but even via email, then there's always the risk that that could be forwarded or sort of sent. Or that's what I mean. Like, it creates a vulnerability in the communication chain, and that's the only reason I would imagine that. It's the only reason that I can imagine, even from OSSTF, like a union, like they just would not want to put that in writing, and to do the legwork of making an announcement is just way too much, like to tell everybody individually. So
I think for us, it probably stems from the union, that it's, when no administrators are in the building, who's in charge?
mhm.
And if teachers don't know who's in charge and they're not aware that their admin's gone, that could be a safety issue as well.
Mhm.
So no, I get your side, and you're right. In an email, that could get forwarded and it could end up in the wrong hands, 100%. I just think it's nuts that I might call the office and be like, I need an administrator now. And they're like, there are no administrators in the building. Well, who the hell is going to help me? Because I need
Yeah.
something now, right? I think probably something like that's occurred, and that's how we've ended up in this situation where admin need to notify staff who is, as Gary said, who's been delegated the authority until the admin gets back.
Mhm.
Man, I was going to say something as you were.
Door locking, unlocking.
No, okay, so it has to do with you in the hallway. So I was a couple times this week. So I did my work in my classroom, and then I ate my lunch, which is kind of I've gotten into the routine of oh, Gary says that our emails reference board policy and Bill 157. Yeah.
Wise.
Wise. So I don't know why I'm sharing this, but I am. So I've gotten into the routine now of when I'm eating my lunch, I'm also listening to my polos. So on my way to work, I'll message some of you and chat with you as I'm getting to work, and then all of you will respond to me as you're going to work. And so I eat my lunch while I listen to the messages. That's my time, which I'm entitled to. And then I will work on my e-learn. And then once my e-learn's under control, I'll walk the halls. I'll either call kids to my office space to do my monitoring, or I'll walk the halls, because I find a lot of my customers are not in class. They're in the halls, or they're outside the school, or they're in the library. So anyway, I'm just sharing that because it's part of my routine and part of like my radar of how to find the kids that I'm tasked to connect with and work with and help. So the other day, I went into the library, and it's hilarious. It was period 5. I walk in the library, and there's this, it's like teacher radar. All the kids just look at the door and they see me, and right away I can tell they're assessing whether I'm a threat or not, which is hilarious. To me, it's funny. So I'm smiling. So they probably think I'm a psycho, but I'm smiling because I can see the threat assessment that they're doing. Like, is this guy going to cause me a problem? So then I start walking through the library, and I am looking for people. But when somebody asks, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "I'm just taking a tour, checking in. How are you doing? Thanks for asking what I'm up to." And then we have a conversation, right? So the other day I walk in, I get the threat assessment, and then everybody's like, he's not a threat. So they go back to doing whatever. And as I'm talking to one kid, I see him literally jump. he like jumps into the corner, and then right away I turn around and I look at the door because I'm thinking, oh, something happened behind me. And it's one of our VPs walking past the library. To which then I go to the door, I open the door, and I wondered if he would turn around and come back, but he just kept walking. So I turn around and I say to the kid, "Are you hiding from the VP? Like, what gives? What are you doing wrong that the minute the VP walks past, you are like losing your mind?" "I swear I'm not skipping. I'm not." Oh, I'm not saying any of that. I'm asking you why you didn't jump when you saw me, but you jumped when you saw him. "Well, you're not the VP." And I'm like, where are you supposed to be right now? Right. And then they start giving the song and dance. So as I'm done doing my thing, and I found some of my people, and I say to my people, I give them one of these. I'm like, your name came up at caseload. You're not going to class. I come back with, I'm not your administrator. I'm your support person. I don't know how to support you here while you're skipping science. Like, you're
Mhm.
not going to pass. You're not going to hand in any assignments. You don't know what's going on in science. Is there anything I can do? I know it's the call me if you need me, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not going to twist your arm. I'm showing you I care. I'm not sitting in my office surfing the internet. I'm out here finding you to check in. Like, do you want to go to room 208? Do you want to go talk to your period 5 teacher? I'm here. "No, Mr. C, I'll go tomorrow or whatever. I'm really anxious today." And I'm like, well, do you need to talk to somebody about your anxiety? Like, I'm looking for, you're going to give me 100 problems. I'll offer you some solutions and I'll walk by your side if that's what you want. But I know that's not what you want. So I finish up, I go to the office, and I say to the VP, "Hey, do you have a minute? I want to talk to you." He's like, "Yeah, come on
Mhm.
in." So I'm like, "Dude, it was hilarious the way that room stopped when you walked past. I thought for sure you were coming." And he goes, "Well, sometimes I just do a drive by, and that alone sets them off." I'm like, "Cool. I want to be around when you go in there because that'd be fun." So we laughed a little bit about it, and he's like, what did he say? He goes, "Oh, there's only like 30 minutes left in the day." He goes, "Period 5, we're looking at the admin team's looking at how do we manage that because we know there's a million kids in the library skipping, so we need to do something about it. Part of that is me going." He's talking about himself, me going into the library and kind of saying, "You're not supposed to be here, and I know because I know your schedule. You're on my caseload." And then he was like, "You go in there too?" I'm like, "Yeah, I walk the halls," but I'm like, I have to be in the right mindset because when I'm walking the halls, inevitably I run into somebody on my caseload that's not supposed to be in the hall. And then it's like, sometimes when you step in it, it's deep, right? Yeah, I see one kid and it turns into the rest of the period counseling,
Yep.
getting, you know how it is, right?
Absolutely.
So sometimes it's easier to just call kids to my room out of class if they're in class. And sometimes I put my running shoes on, I take that tour, and it's fun. It's fun because I get a vibe for what it might be like to be an administrator
Yeah.
on the road, you know? Gary, I'd love to I don't know if Gary will chime in, but I'd love to hear from Gary about, how often, Gary, are you walking the halls? Um, and do you find that some days you just can't get into the hall because there's too much going on in the office? People are coming to you instead of you going to them. I'd love to hear about that. If Gary can share, willing to share.
It's different. I'll say from what I've noticed, it is different once you move from VP to P. By design, the P's job almost forces them to be in the main office. And there's always something to sort of take care of in the main office, whether you're working with your administrative staff or having to respond to your superintendent or just working on whatever your school slash board slash director's plan is, right? There's always something there. So it's always one of those, oh hey, did you see the principal out in the halls today? Like it's almost like it's like a pokeroo or snuffleupagus or something, right? Like it's mythical. VPs, I would say that they too can be buried in the office, but most of their work, that some of that groundbreaking work is in the halls. I think the downside is that the scope of paperwork relative, like the amount of paperwork that results in being in the halls, you have to be judicious because the stuff you will find things to do reports on. And, right, you walk out of your office and I think they leave is that you leave expecting that the moment you walk out you're going to have to decide what fork in the road am I going to walk down, right? As far as dealing with a specific kid, you're going to decide, okay, am I going to do the fourth floor or the third floor today? I know if I go to the third floor I'm going to encounter X, right? So it's a just the relentlessness of um, human work for the VP is just mind blowing. And from a peace perspective, those days where your two VPs, maybe one's out at staffing, another one's out at IPRCs for the new spec ed crew coming in, and the P has to run the whole thing. Like, you know, I've had firsthand conversations with Ps around, though they appreciate and they just get this sort of like sparkly look in their eyes of being able to go back and be a VP again or do VP work at the exact same time, your work still is waiting for you. So, it does double or triple or quadruple your day. And you have to choose. You have to choose. Am I going to do this when I go home tonight? Or am I just going to kind of not do the VP work because I have to take a phone call. I have to do a committee meeting. Like, it's just mind blowing. What's Gary saying here? I try to be an often I'm out in the halls, but some days it is difficult. Yeah, man. We know it, Gary. We know it.
Yeah.
Me and Chiz just a couple of wannabes. We've been sort of like, watching the video feed on this for a few years now. So yeah, I know enough. I know more than the average teacher, I guess, about what the job kind of looks like. And Gary, and I'm betting and wondering at the same time, like, even as I say that, I recognize I still don't know the full job. And I was wondering, maybe Gary was already saying, like, yeah, Clough, yeah, but there's still other stuff, Clough, that you never know until you take on the job. I get it and respect. I'm sure it was similar for you coming out of your work in the classroom and stepping into the getting the master key moment. I know that. That's even some of the stuff that I've been able to experience as a substitute administrator doesn't even toe dip into the full scope of what the job does entail. I know that.
I remember when I was in elementary and I was principal designate, I remember there were some days where my teacher colleagues would purposely do things and act in certain ways when the principal was gone that they would never do when the principal was in the building. And I'm like, I was never that guy. Like, I would just look at them and be like, what are you, like, why are you doing that? They're like, well, so-and-so's not here today. I'm like, I'm their designate and you're doing something stupid and I'm not your boss and I'm not even going to pretend to be your boss, but like, what the hell? And like, well, it's all good, right? It's just one of those things where it's like, I just look at them. I'm like, you'd never do that if so-and-so was in the building. So-and-so steps out of the building. Now you're doing it. I just like, oh my God. Anyway.
One of my first designate moments, I forget when it happened. There's two different ones that come to mind. Being told directly that, remember, you are the designate. And that was a coded, not so coded version of, you're not here just to manage kids. you also are here to keep the ship straight and pay attention to staff as well. Like that's part of the job. I mean, I don't know. I'll assume that you know, as someone corrected me, you they're all administrators. Like even the vice addition to it isn't so much to say that the vice is anything less than the principal. And there's sort of like all of them are sort of like, as far as leaders in the building, have a similar shape of power. Now, I mean, that's no one would argue though that, I mean, the principal's kind of like the more public outward facing leader for the school, and the vice principals are the inward facing for, anyways. But the commentary about me also watching staff, I took that to my branch president and I said, okay, obviously OSSTF is okay with teachers taking on the role. What's the scope of that though? So if I do notice something that is against or contrary to our collective agreement or board policy, am I to report that to the VPs? Because we take for granted that anything that happens, well, that something happens with a kid, well, I just bring that right to admin, right? Like this is what went down. Here's my report. I have to pass it back to you because I'm going back to teaching my classes tomorrow. But what is the due diligence if you notice that a staff member, and the initial comment of remember you're a designate suggested to me that have fun with the conflict of interest, Clef, because it could happen. I would wonder if Gary could comment on that from their perspective. Do they instruct their designates? You know, you're principally paying attention to the kids here. Don't dip too far into something where you're actually making notes and taking notes on one of your colleagues. But if you did take notes, we'd appreciate you getting those to us as well. Because that's just, it's a little bit of a gray zone, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who are you? Because you're not non-union. You are still. I'm still OSSTF no matter what. That doesn't get suspended for the day. So I haven't really pushed too far into that, but I'd be curious to be at a table and just kind of like parse that out a little bit.
When I was designate, I was simply focused on the problems that came to the office.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, I was always, okay, what can I do at this moment to assist and not make things worse, but also
Mm-hmm.
not pretend like I was in charge, because I wasn't in
Mm-hmm.
charge. So what I would do is I would always report back to the principal the facts, what came to me, what I discovered from like looking into it, and then what I did maybe to help with the situation. So like if a
Mm-hmm.
kid was being disruptive in class and they were sent to the office, or if something happened at recess, then it's
Walk
like,
them through your process.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
like, this is what came to me. And so, and this is back in the day when like my principal would get a supply teacher for me so that I could be available in the office all for the full day that they were away.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well, Clough got himself in trouble at first recess and caused a fight. So for the rest of the day, Clough isn't going for recess. Clough's going to hang with me at recess time. And it's like one of those things where I'm like, we're going to make sure you don't cause any more problems outside. So I'm going to be responsible. You're going to stay with me for the recess until the principal can make a decision on what needs to happen with you.
Yep.
And I'm going to report, and I'm going to investigate what happened so I can provide all that to the principal, and then they can do what they do with it. So it was always like, teachers would come to me and they'd be like, Jimmy's lost his mind or whatever. I'm like, what would you normally do? Like if so-and-so was in the building, would you be coming to me? They're like, well, no. That's the other thing too. Well, but the principal's not here. You are, and I want you to deal with it. I'm like, oh my God, in 5 hours, I'm going to be back in my classroom just like you. I'm like, so I'd always say that. What would you do if the principal was here? Well, I'd deal with it. Okay. Well, what's stopping you from dealing with it today? Well, but the principal's not here. You're here. I want you to deal with it. I want him to stay with you all day. And I'm like, I can't babysit 30 kids for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would be like, okay, well, send the kid to the office. I'll talk to them. And again, it was like, I tell my principal, ex teacher sent Jimmy to the office. I had a chat with Jimmy and just said, like, hey, make better choices, and I'm going to let the principal know this happened. And then he'll do what he does with it. And I'm like, I don't want to call your mom and tell her you're being a jerk. Like, that would suck, right? Yeah, that would suck, Mr. C. Okay, well, then change your behavior for the rest of the day. Like, it was just these funny moments of either teachers were acting in a way that they would never act when the principal's in the building. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? I know I'm not your boss, but you're doing stupid shit that I may have to take factually, and something might happen with this and I have to report it. I don't care from your colleague. If you leave your classroom in the middle of the day and something happens, those are the facts that I'm going to provide to the principal.
Mhm.
Or the principal's gone and all of a sudden it's a free for all. Just send them to Roland. He's in the office today. What?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and how's that going to look when I report to the principal? All these kids were sent to the office, and he's like, but they're never sent to the office. I'm like, well, they were sent today, kind of thing. It's like, I just never understood that.
Mhm.
Um, one thing I wanted to share was recently a teacher walked into room 208 in the morning when I was prepping for my periods in there. He's like, yo, you want to be a principal? And I said, what? He goes, you've got your principal qualifications, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, why did you wait 10 years between PQP1 and 2? And then I stopped what I was doing. And I'm like, you want to tell me why you looked me up on OCT? Like, what gives? You walk in here with all these questions. He's like, well, I'm interested in leadership, and I noticed that you have this guy did total research about me. Like, he knew all my AQs. He looked at the times between taking this and that. And I was dying laughing. Like, do you just sit at home and look up everybody you know or what? He's like, well, I looked you up and I see that you have your papers. I'd love to know why you haven't done it yet. I'm thinking about doing it. Literally, this guy's talking to me like minutes before the bell rings and he has to go to class and I've got to be responsible for the room. I wanted to share that with you. That was hilarious out of nowhere. And that was it. He left after that and I haven't spoken to him since, but it was like, hey, how come you're not a principal yet? Did you want to be a principal? You took your papers 10 years apart. I was like, what is going on here? One after the other, all these, not like a soft, hey, have you ever thought about leadership? Hard, right in there. I was like, do you have an hour? Because that's how long it's going to take for me to explain these things to you if you really want to know. But I thought that was funny. I thought what made me laugh out loud was, why'd you wait 10 years to do PQP part 2? Oh, man. I don't even know how he got my name. Somebody must have said something.
Mm.
Somebody must have said something.
Gary posted up there about having the phone numbers. It was kind of funny because the principal, he dropped by my classroom in the morning, and he just he wandered in, and he does, and he has actually said, he's complimentary, said, I like coming to your class, you do interesting things, it's just kind of a fun class. And like this semester I'm way at the back of the school, it's a long walk to my classroom. So he showed up in there, and I figured he was going to ask something about the designate duty for that day. So he just came and he hung and he chatted for a little bit. And then at the end, he's like, you still good for today? And I'm like, yeah, man. Like, did something change? He's like, no, 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 no. He goes, do you have the phone numbers? I'm like, yeah, yeah. I'm going to put them. I haven't put them into a chat, which is more convenient. Just put them into the same chat. I said, but I don't think I have yours. He's like, yep, yeah. He goes, okay. And he just walked out of the room. I started laughing.
So,
I
bro,
just,
I had a
yeah,
principal. I had a principal where I was designate for this principal, but I didn't like the principal. And this principal would not give me her cell phone number. She's like, just email me. I'll get the email. I'm like, no problem.
yeah,
She was it wasn't her cell phone. It was a school. It's like, remember when I had my work phone?
yeah,
My
yeah,
work phone, anybody in the board who wanted it or a parent, no problem. This is how you can contact me, right? You can email me or you can text this phone. You can call this phone. What about your personal number? No, no, no. That's not for you. That's for me. But the board phone, that's what it's for. But it was funny. This principal, some principals, it's hilarious. Some principals, when you meet them, they're like, here's my phone number. Call me, text me anytime. This principal was like, here's my email. Everybody has my email. I'm not giving you my board cell number. And we're all looking at each other like, this is going to be a problem. I remember when we looked at each other like, this is not going to be good working with this person. Right off the bat, they were guarded about a number that doesn't need to be guarded. Like, that's not yours. It belongs to the school board. How can you not be accessible to your staff? Like, all kinds of questions come in, right? But I remember that.
Mhm.
Okay, and this principal, God forbid that I had 10 minutes to sit in the office and work on something of my own until a problem occurred, right? I was given like a laundry list of jobs to do while I had a supply teacher in for the day. And
Right.
then at one point I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not, some of the requests you're making, I'm not doing. And that was an interesting conversation with some people. Some people would say to me, well, why wouldn't you do those things? I'm like, because somebody else's job to do these things, and they're obviously
Mhm.
not doing it. So she's giving them to me to make sure things get done. So why isn't she having a hard conversation with the person who's supposed to be doing this work? Like, why am
Yeah.
it could go any way. My
Yeah,
perception
yeah.
was, you're giving me a list of Joe jobs to do for the day that they're not your job to do, but I'm doing them because you don't want to do them, and whoever's
Mhm.
supposed to be doing them isn't doing them.
Yep.
That's my perception. And yeah, it's awesome. Some people agreed with me. Some people are like, "Oh, you're just being a baby." I'm being a baby. How about I give you those Joe jobs and you go do them? Yeah, no problem. If I was the designate, I'd go do the Joe jobs. Okay, great. You're gonna be designate? No, no, I have no interest in being a designate. Okay. Hilarious, man.
In that conversation when he dropped by, he's kind of leaning. He's like, yeah, yeah. He's just like, so casual, but yeah, he's a tall dude. So I'm at the desk, and I'm kind of tall too. But sitting down, this desk is too small. I don't know how the teacher's desk is like that. I was sitting down doing just dropping in my attendance. He's kind of leaning. He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He goes, it should be a pretty quiet day. I'm like, dude. I said there are several businesses in activities in the world where you do not say that. You don't say that in the restaurant business. You don't say that in the theater. Like, there's certain phrases you don't say. I said, I don't know much about the job, but I dare you to go say something like that to your VPs right now. He's like, true. He goes, my bad. My bad. I'm like, I'm texting you first. And that's where it got into me saying the text chat. And he's like, I said, I don't think I have your number. He's like, okay, sounds good. Then he walked out of the room. Yeah, it was a quiet afternoon. It was shooing kids back into class, but I don't have a lot of superstitions, but I will say it's wrongheaded to sort of say to justify, to sort of preload the calm before the actual storm has come. Deal with the storm. Don't promise people it's going to be anything other than a day. Use your tools, right? But it was just funny. He said that, and I just slammed my hands on the desk. I'm like, how could you say that? What would you go and say that for?
That's the
Thanks for
same. Sorry.
no, I was gonna say thanks for the challenge.
That's the same thing in our room. I Either I will look at the ed tech EA or she'll look at me and I'm like, we're not going there. We're not
Mhm.
going there. Um, but when it does hit the fan, we're looking at each other like, here, it's coming. It's on
Yeah,
now, you know?
here it
Um,
is.
but there have been a couple of days where, I get to the end of period 2 and we look at each other, we're like, okay, uh, it was really quiet today. And then after
Mhm.
I say it, I'm like, now my afternoon's gonna go upside down, but that's
It
okay.
can, and it's like I said, total superstition.
Yes, totally. There's no scientific evidence. It's just a gut feeling or for
That's right.
fun,
We
you say it
just
or
the
whatever.
things you don't say. It's on that list. Don't say that. Don't say stuff like that.
Um, Anything else you wanna drop?
No man. No man. I'm Yeah, no, I'm good.
I'm good too.
All right.
Gary, thanks for joining us live, and anybody else checking us out, thanks for checking us out. Feel free to contact Chris or I if you have anything you want to chat more about or ask questions about. We're open to that, pretty much.
I'd say yeah.
Okay,
Always happy to
Corey,
chat.
check in with me, and don't contact Chris and be like Roland said we could contact you.
Yeah. It happens, though. It does happen.
This was season 9, episode 34, number 382 of the Decoded Podcast. Until next time, have a good one.
Peace, man.